So thank all of you for coming today. We've been wanting to do this for quite some time now. There's a lot of things obviously that's happened in the world, a lot of things that's happened in our community, a lot of things that's happened in our country over the last 3 to 6 months, and everybody here has participated in it at some level, whether it's involuntary or involuntary. And you know, we wake up at some point in time in our life and we decide to start a business or run a business, chase a dream, fulfill a purpose, execute on a mission, or just try to create a good living for our families. And then one day you wake up, and I bet not a single person in here, and I know we didn't, had COVID-19 in your business plan. What do you do when that shows up? And it's just hard to predict, hard to manage through the consequences of something as significant as what we've experienced. And I got to tell you that as a bank, when Washington started talking about the relief programs that were coming out, we were excited about the idea that we're going to put stimulus back into the system. There's always an economic consequence of that as well. That's a different conversation, but it needed to be done. There was then a lot of debate about how it would be done. And the minute they said, we're going to let the banks do that, oh my goodness, how in the world can a bank like First Reliance Bank execute on something this sophisticated and this complicated in a very short window, and in such a manner that services every one of you and keeps you a part of the program and keeps your businesses operating the way they ought to. And we had a lot of sleepless nights around here about how well we could do that. We're not Bank of America. I don't have thousands of people sitting in a project room waiting on a project to take place. I only have a couple hundred people that work for us, and they already got big jobs they're already doing. So everything we did to do this was an extra effort. So as the program began to release and we started to work through the operational aspects of it, we realized that there was a lot of uncertainty about how it was going to work, how we would operationalize the program, how we would manage the risk of the program, and how we would get all of you taken care of. And if you watch the news, whether it be CNN or Fox or whatever the news of your choice would be, there's not a lot of positive conversation about Washington and people in Washington today. But I got to tell you, I called Congressman Rice up and I said, we got a problem. This thing's affecting the community bank space more than you might think. And he and I and people on his staff talked, along with Fred Green, who is the champion for banks in South Carolina, for a couple of weeks until this thing got implemented. And I promise you that this thing probably would not have happened had our congressman not been involved on a daily basis and helped us execute this process. So we work closely with his office, we work closely with the treasurer's office, through him and his team. And every complaint, every concern, every operational issue we had, it was fixed and mitigated and managed because of this man and his team. So I don't know who your politician of choice is, but when you go to the polls the next time he's up, I would say you ought to give him a hard look, because everything that we are doing today with respect to this stimulus is because of him. I think. I'm going to give you credit for it. So thank you, Congressman. So I want to say one last thing. I'm going to be your banker for just a minute. And I don't want to rain on this positive day, but I just got off the phone call with the Federal Reserve before I came in here. They were talking about outlook, economic outlook. And their answer to us bankers when we were asking about what forward outlooks were is, we don't know. The brightest minds in Washington don't know what the next 6 months holds. So I would encourage all of you, as you build your plans for the next 6 months to a year, to take a very conservative approach. People think banks are in the business of lending money. We're actually in the business of investing in people and collecting deposits and reinvesting those deposits in things like loans. So loans aren't our number one priority. Deposits in your safety and health of your businesses are our number one priority. So just be conscientious about how you invest and how you operate and what you do for the next 6 months. I think they were optimistic. I'm optimistic as well, but there's just so much uncertainty about what's out there right now. I can't tell you that things can't get bouncy for the next 12 months. So we're positioning for bouncy. We've got a strategic plan that has two paths. One's a conservative, things are bouncy. The other is things are great, let's charge the hill hard. So I would encourage you to do the same. So I'm going to turn it over to Robert Dozier, my Chief Banking Officer. Have at it, Robert.
Great, thank you.
I'm going to swap seats with you, buddy.
Okay. Appreciate it. Congressman, thanks for being here. A couple of introductions and welcomes. First of all, again, welcome to all of you. The fact that this room is packed at 4 o'clock on Tuesday says an awful lot about your belief in this community, and I hope you know that this is our belief as well. So the partnership that we have, we truly appreciate. Tom Ewart, our market leader. You could be mayor or a whole lot of things. So say a welcome on your behalf.
Well, thank every one of you for being here, and thank you for having the confidence in us to help support you. A lot of you, we were talking one-on-one and working through some interesting times with this program. So your commitment and your loyalty to us is very appreciated. So thanks for being here today.
Thanks, Tom. Another great partner of ours is Fred Green with the South Carolina Bankers Association. He knows we had a goal that we wanted to have one of the first community roundtables to talk about PPP successes. We might talk about challenges and some next steps within our little roundtable format, but I think you were on the phone with us like 14 days in a row, and every day kind of changed the program and parameters, and you were being patient and trying to get us to be patient, and all along you also said, Congressman will help us if he knows what's going on, and I think that's important. But Fred, welcome, and let you say welcome too.
Thank you, Robert, Rick, Tom, your team, and your customers. Everything you said about the Congressman is correct. We were on a conference call early on too, and what I described was banks taking a great leap of faith, making these loans before the rules were even issued, and they had to assume that the SBA would honor that commitment. And this gentleman said, I've got you back. And so when he said that on this conference call that Robert mentioned, with 500 bankers around the state, that got it going. So thank you again.
Yeah, a little inside baseball on that conference call. I remember we were up in Rick's office, and somebody else, another colleague of yours in Congress, was like, is it really starting to impact this lobby closing and lines from the drive-through wrapped around the building? And Rick said, I'm looking at the drive-through with everything wrapped around the building. We got to get answers to these people right now. And you picked up on that and actually came back to Rick's comments at the end. I don't know if you remember, you got a lot on your mind and do a lot of things, but you came back to him, and that's where you put your chief of staff with us. We worked over the weekend to get those final pieces together. So the way we've got it set up, and thanks for bearing with us with the social distancing and the chairs and everything. We're trying to make a big round discussion area. We're just going to be flexible. But we're going to go around, and what Congressman really wants to hear are the stories about you, your businesses, the impact of COVID and what it's doing to you, but how the PPP funds are being utilized. And you notice there's no press in here. Interesting thing about the press getting a hold from the Treasury Department, all the lists and names of customers and everything. We didn't want any of that. We wanted you to have a discussion. But before I turn over for quick introductions from each of you and your businesses, Congressman, again, thank you for being here, and give you a minute to just welcome everybody.
Well, I'm so honored to be here with you. You know, I ran for this, it was a new seat. I ran for this seat in 2012, and one of the reasons I ran, my focus is on jobs. I think jobs equals opportunity. If you get somebody a job that can pursue the American dream, it solves a lot of problems, economic problems, domestic problems, crime problems, drug problems, mental health problems. The job solves a lot of ills. And when I ran in 2012, every county in my district was pretty close to 10% unemployment. Marion, Dillon, Marlboro are closer to 20% unemployment. Think about from 2012 until 3 months ago, 4 months ago, every county in the district was below 4% or 5% unemployment, and Marion County, for God's sake, one of the poorest counties in the state, was below 4%. Think about that transition, and where did it come from? It came from strategy and execution. It came from tax reform, regulatory reform, trade reform, Dillon Inland Port, beachfront renourishment for tourism, all these things coming together, and it worked. And then we get hit with this double barrel shotgun, right? Set us way back. Talk about uncertainty when all this was unfolding with the Federal Reserve. You know, we thought we were looking at easily a Great Recession and maybe even worse. And it became very apparent very quickly that we had to get relief and not just, didn't need to be metered out over a long period of time. We had to do it then. And before the law even passed, PPP wasn't my idea. You know, I knew we had to do something along those lines. But before it even passed and once the outline was out there, I was calling Rick. I was calling Anderson Brothers. I was calling South State. I was calling Fred. I was calling, because I didn't want South Carolina to get caught flat. But sometimes we do. Not just banking. I'm not talking about Fred does a great job, but sometimes we miss out on some of these federal things. I didn't want us to get flat-footed, and we got prepared early on. And think about this. That law was signed into being like on a Wednesday, and it said the loans were going to start being made the following Friday. Holy moly! Think about the speed of that. And I got to give Mnuchin a lot of credit. I mean, and the SBA to pull that together and to actually start dispersing money, and then these bankers with the leap of faith, like you're talking about, it was a remarkable, it was a miracle what it was. And it all came together. And I've been across the district, and I've heard story after story after story of people telling me, well, because of that, I was able to save these jobs. Because of that, I've actually added some jobs. So it's doing exactly what it was designed to do. And I'm proud to have been a part of it. And, you know, when it came out, it needed some tweaks. Almost immediately, I started hearing from people in the restaurant business. They're saying, you know, you're telling us we got to spend this money in 8 weeks, but the government ordered we be closed. So how's that going to help us? People in the rental business. You know, I got 1,700 restaurants on the Grand Strand. Not counting the PD, 1,700. I mean, per capita, that's probably one of the highest concentrations of restaurants in the whole country. You know, maybe Orlando or Las Vegas or something like that. And 100,000 rental units on the Grand Strand. Tourism, huge industry. So we were able to get some changes. You know, I was pushing early on for those changes, and they came through. 32 weeks now. Not 75% of the salary, 60%. So you know, I got myself in a position with your help, ways and means, we can move the needle a little bit. So I don't just want to hear about, I want to hear whatever you want to say, and I want to hear your success stories. But I also want to hear how we can do it better, because there's going to be another plan coming in. It's becoming more and more obvious that there's going to be a fourth bill, and we're going to have an opportunity to tweak it again. I don't know that there's going to be any more money in PPP. I don't know if PPP is going to be reopened. There's still money left there for people to ask for that they're not asking for right now. But how can we make the existing plan better for y'all? What can we do? Because it was thrown together very quickly. What can we do to make it more effective for y'all? So I want constructive criticism as well. For that, I'll turn it back over to
Great, thank you. So why don't we do this? Why don't we first go around, just a quick introduction, who you are, your business. Then we'll come back around and start talking stories and how do we improve.
I'm Jim Stewart, and I'm a state farm agent here in town. I've been here about 30 years. And when I first heard about the program, you get the thought, well, I'm from the government, I'm here to help you kind of sit back a little bit. But I decided to go ahead with it. Got up to Tom and Paul, and for me it was outstanding. But you need a good CPA behind you, and I've got one. She's sitting back here. So I can't imagine people that try to do it without some kind of a good banking and a good CPA. It's impossible. But the money came quickly. I kept my same payroll. My business, because most insurance companies stop cancellations for a while. We're still waiting for that to shoot up, because now the cancellation is back in effect. So I see a little bit of a dip coming, but other than that, we're going to write it down and move forward. So it's been a great program.
Yeah, I'm Dr. Joe Griffin, Advanced Dental Center, and it was such a good program. I didn't want to talk about it publicly. It really was good. And I called, and I appreciate you taking the call. The only thing I would like to see, and I think I keep hearing rumors of an infrastructure bill, is that we give tax credits for cost-effective indoor air quality improvements. And you can dramatically, improve your indoor air quality. It's not just viruses, bacteria, and mold. You can make your air conditioning run 10% faster. And I don't want to get into more details, but I really appreciate it. And it shows that you come from a CPA background and you were head of county council before you were in Congress. And so you have a financial background and a shoulder-to-shoulder the working man's background. And I just can't tell you enough that it's been, the business is great. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, I got good news for you. We're dropping a bill on Thursday, day after tomorrow, that gives $1,000 per employee tax credit for making your workplace safe. So, for things like barriers, air quality, PPE, what you need to do to get your workers back in, $1,000 per employee for the first 500 employees, and it drops to 750, and then drops to 500. So we're going to drop that bill Thursday, and I bet you, the likelihood is it'll be in that next recovery package.
That's awesome. It's a good thing for America.
So what else can I do for you?
More than I expected.
See, we got him in the front row.
My name is Vanessa Sansbury. I'm representing my husband, Stephen Sansbury, was Pete Sansbury. He's a barbershop owner. He has 8 barbers there.
Man,
I'm not.
I am dying to get back to my bar. My wife has come out here twice in the last 3 months. I got to get back to my bar.
Oh, well, I'm not a CPA, but I handled everything for the PPP, and it was set up. I can say it was not a difficult process. So the process for he was self-employed. He was a sole proprietor. Since then, he's become LLC because we see that maybe a lot bit easier. I'm not sure, but the process was good. The money was well needed because he has independent contractors, and
Not many people were going to the barber and all that.
no. Well, they couldn't go because we were shut down. And then the independent contractors, they had families they had to take care of. And of course, the PPP helped to provide the rent. He did not charge his independent contractors because they weren't there. Because a lot of shops, the people quit.
Yeah.
They quit, and they said they weren't coming back in order for them to forego the rent, to not have to pay the rent. But everything was really good, and it was beneficial, and I thank God for it because of the fact, if it not had been for the PPP that we have gotten, we would be in debt personally because we were sole proprietor as opposed to LLC, but that has been corrected, so we won't have to worry about
You're
that.
exactly the kind of business this thing was targeted at, and thank you for being here, and that was an awesome story. And I really believe it wouldn't have been for that program, the economic situation that we're looking at right now, we would have a whole lot more to recover from than we do right now.
I do believe that because some of his colleagues did close down
Yeah.
as a result.
One problem I'm still hearing is that, and you wouldn't believe it with how the unemployment rates show. But I'll still have a lot of people complaining they can't find employees. There you go. Yes, sir.
I'm Tony Oates. I'm with PD Auto Sales. We've been in business here for 31 years now. Mainly a buy here, pay here a lot, but Paul and Rick and Tom, everyone helped us get our PPP. It went pretty well. I mean, I can't complain. It was pretty self-explanatory. Like Jim said, a good CPA really helped out. We're able to keep all our employees on payroll. We've actually added one person and looking for 2 more. So I think it all worked out well. Appreciate what you've done for us.
That is just great news. I love that ad for you.
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Congressman, everybody in this room, this is where the rubber meets the road, is this kind of group. I'm Brian Patterson, I'm a general dentist, kind of like Joe. And for the last 2 years, I've been working with Tom, building a new building, a new office. And we moved in March the 20th and opened for 1 day. And turned right back around and shut down to emergencies only. And here I am in a brand new building and furloughing, half of my staff.
Wow.
What are we going to do? What is this going to look like? And we're mandated by DHEC that you can't see patients. And that's a very stressful 5 or 6 weeks that immediately with that money, I mean, speaking for everybody in here, that we wouldn't have made it. We wouldn't have gotten by, you know, especially with a brand new building without that loan, without the help. And for me, it's, you know, I can't speak loud enough for it that it's life. It's where it is. And since we've been able to get back open, we've been, you know, very busy. Like I'm hearing a lot of them say, we're adding employees, we're growing. Those people that were home waiting to get their haircuts were waiting to get their teeth fixed. So,
You might need to call the Federal Reserve and tell them not to be quite so.
That's right. And to jump on the last question, future concerns, are y'all gonna shut us down again? You know, that's a tremendous concern, probably for everybody in this room, of what does it look like? I believe right now, you mentioned people not asking for money right now. Right now, a lot of us, the economy's trying to get back going again. But if you shut us down, what does that look like?
Well, obviously, you know, I don't make that call, that's
Right.
a state level. The governor is trying to balance difficult problems. On the one hand, the economy, and the other hand, the level of illness. You know, people think, and in the media, it's hard not to think this way, that we're supposed to stamp out this illness. Guys, I hate to tell you this, we're not gonna stamp out this illness. This illness is gonna keep moving through the population until we get a vaccine. And if you listen to Fauci, people just listen to the one line or two lines. If you listen to Gottlieb, these people are telling you, Gottlieb was in the press this week saying, after January 1st, it'll get better. Well, the reason is because he thinks 40 or 50% of the population will have it by then. So the goal when we shut down initially was we were afraid that the hospitals would be overrun and it would be completely out of control, and we wanted to slow it down, and we did that. Now, the governor's worried because we're approaching that level again. You know, he did this thing with the restaurants and the bars a couple of days ago. I was on I called my hospital administrators on the Grand Strand, McLeod, and Florence McLeod, and HCA, and Tidelands, and Conway, and talked about capacity, and they're getting in some scary territory. And I set up a conference call with the governor last Thursday. We spent an hour with these administrators telling the governor where they are. So, you know, we slowed it down one time, and I don't know that we have to go as far. I think the public is more aware now, and I think they're being more cautious. I'm very hopeful that we need to stay open, but I understand the governor's got a tough call too.
Well, we sure hope we stay open.
Yes, sir.
But as you're out and about though, you're seeing people adapt. I mean, even this, I mean, we debated internally where we were gonna cancel this, or how we were gonna do it, how the room was gonna be set up. I mean, everybody is starting to just live with it and you know, hopefully contribute in their daily lives like this, you know?
Well, the hope is that we can keep it at a slow enough pace that, you know, through the end of the year, if we don't overwhelm the hospitals, and maybe the end of the year, first of next year, we get some kind of a vaccine. That's the point. But that's not a given. And I think every country is still, you know, they can say they got it stamped out, but it's coming back next week. And we're all gonna face that worldwide until there is some kind of real treatment for this thing. And we've learned a lot. I mean, even though cases are way up, fatalities are still way down. I mean, in mid-April, we were having 40,000 cases announced a day and 2,500, 2,600 deaths a day. Now we're at 60,000 cases a day, but we are at 600-700 deaths a day. So we've learned a lot. We've learned a lot about ventilators. We don't need them as much. We're killing people with a ventilator. We damn sure learned that you don't do like New York and New Jersey and put sick people in the nursing home. We've learned that you know, you put people on their stomach. We've learned that we can treat them with steroids. We've learned that we're remdesivir. So there's a lot of, we're learning as we go. The next really big issue is schools. And that's gonna work. That's a tough call. Man, I tell you, there's nothing more precious than children, right? That's a tough. Now, on one hand, you got the governor, the epidemiologist and the pediatrician saying you need to open school. But on the other hand, you gotta have adults in there too, right?
That's right.
That's a hard stuff.
Neil?
I'm Neil Zimmerman, Boys and Girls Club. So, just a little history. I think it was March 14th, we had 120 employees, seeing about 750 kids a day. On 15th or whatever that following Monday was, we had half as many employees because we had no work. Schools were closed. That's essentially our after-school program. Within a couple of weeks, I was actually about 18 hours away of me being the last employee at Boys and Girls Club, just to say, we gotta stay open, we gotta be ready to reopen. PPP came around and we said, hey, let's make some educated guesses here. So we used to be an after-school and in-school tutoring program. Well, all at once, we became a phone call, doing wellness calls to all of our kids every week, sending them paper-type things to work on at home. Actually started a YouTube activity channel for them, so we kind of changed our model from face-to-face to that. And I'll say as the 8 weeks got extended to 24 weeks, it's like we can open for summertime for working parents. No way we could have done it at the 8 weeks. So then all at once we were able to open up for working parents during summertime. And just 2 weeks ago, I guess it was, the Lake City School District caught COVID in their cafeteria. They closed down their feed program. Without PPP and being able to give us our infrastructure back, we would not be serving probably 250,000 meals this summer to kids in Lake City. So it's it's not just keeping your employees. For us, it was being able to maintain a program, mentorship, which we know the kids are missing. You mentioned the schools earlier. It's one of the biggest things we see. Half their mentors are now out of their life. We try to stay in there a little bit, but it's just unbelievable, especially with the clientele we serve. So few of opportunities that those kids have to get around positive adults. So, administratively, a breeze compared to some of the grants that we deal with, but it also made it easy access, easy to deal with, easy to understand. What we don't know is what we're going to look like in another 3 weeks, because if schools don't open, our plan is we're going to do something. We just don't know what kind of dollars are actually out there to do it. But again, we know kids need something to do, and parents definitely. Remember a phone call from a dad in Pamplico. He said, we didn't get your newsletter this week. Please send it again. It's the only thing I can help my child with. I don't understand their schoolwork. And when they do those kind of things, it makes you actually get your newsletters out on time. But two things I know that kind of affect us. I know on the unemployment, most businesses got 100% reimbursement from it. We're self-insured. We're at 50%. We're going to be all right. We've always bought insurance for a self-insured insurance or for a self-insured unemployment. But that's definitely going to hit hard some places. It is going to hit us hard because we've had a lot of it collected, but it's still, at least we have some insurance that'll help cover it. And the other thing I know that's coming down, I think it's in the House right now there, is the Work Now Act. I think there are quite a few pieces in there that would be very, very beneficial.
Is that paying people a little bit of money to go back to work instead of paying them $600 a week to stay out of work?
It's more making sure there is a pot designated for boys, or not Boys and Girls Club, for nonprofits. And I believe the way it looks like it goes into governmental local municipalities, and then they pass it out.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, but that one does. Both of those would be able to help a lot of folks continue doing whatever they can do to provide services in the community to kids who need it or adults who need it.
There's gonna be a lot of pressure both ways on the school, whether it's school. Usually see how that comes down. Horry County announced yesterday they're going to delay it till September 7th, I think.
You got a board member all the way down to my right who shared with me one of your emails out to your board, and you just told a couple of good stories there of the impact that you're making. You didn't do it for those reasons, but what you do every single day is just absolutely tremendous. The team from Tom and Paul Saunders is in the back of the house gave us stories on everybody here, and why you're asked is what you do, and each one of you touch the community in a different way. So again, just thinking through and what you do from us, thank you for being here.
Hi, I'm Tracy Forrest. I'm the president of World Traveling Cruises. The travel industry is shut down, and it's still pretty much shut down. Had it not been for Paul, I didn't drive him too crazy, I don't think. He's probably doing an eye roll right now, but.
No, he said good things.
If it weren't for that, I would not be able, if it weren't for the PPP loan, I would not have been able to stay in place and help people reschedule, get their refunds. It's been horrendous. I was on a 30% increase over last year until March here. And now I'm at an 80% loss. And the loan is great, but I wish they would have added the overhead, rent and utilities, because the payroll, covering payroll without any commissions coming in, but I'm able to stay there with Paul's help and this program and hope that it'll be forgiven, and that process is yet to be seen, right?
Yeah,
So it's a little scary, The last thing I want to do is come out of this in debt, but I'm still very, very grateful that it got done so quickly like y'all talked about. And I love First Reliance Bank. I'm honored to be here.
We're filming this. Could you say that?
Oh, he didn't pay me much.
This is actually an hour-long commercial.
Yeah, you mentioned a couple of competitors. I've already forgotten who those were that you mentioned.
I'm grateful, and just please continue to work for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Marvin James with Genesis Landscapes here in town. For us, 70% of our business is new construction. So we deal with the HVA all the time. So for us, it was extremely scary to know what the housing market was going to do. There were a couple weeks where we didn't know if we would have enough work to keep going, but someone that's not in the room that I think represents the bank really well, Reuben Hewitt, he was my rock to stand on. And like you said, having a great CPA is by far the best thing. My CPA and Reuben, they work hand in hand. They leave me out and tell me where to sign. So that's what I do. But with the PPP, I was able to assure my guys that they wouldn't have to go on unemployment. I employ 8 guys, and I was able to keep them and their families with food on their table. I was in the process of hiring one. He was going to start in 2 weeks, and then his wife lost her job due to it, so they moved elsewhere. But all in all, it was a great process, easy to come across and get everything like we needed. Money was available really quick, which is great. And it helped me to help my guys, which my biggest thing is making sure that they can take care of their families before I take care of mine. I have support where I can do that, but making sure I can take care of them was great. So thank you for your hard work and everything you've helped. So
Great
really appreciate
story,
it.
and again, you're exactly who we were aiming at.
Yep.
Great story.
So Marvin's a man's man, he's a landscape guy, but what he won't tell you, he's probably the only chocolate master chef in Florence.
In the state of South Carolina.
In the state of South Carolina. You went to Germany or somewhere to learn to do that, right?
Belgium.
Yep.
What are we doing after this?
Well, if Mary Neal would have told me, I could have brought chocolate. Still love you though.
Thank you.
I'm Bryce Ovington. My wife and I own Florence Pediatric Dentistry, the toy shop. I've worked with Clay many years. He's come and visited us there. But the PPP loan, I guess the best analogy I can give, I have 4 kids, and I think about the birth of our first child, and you look back at the pictures, and everything's happy, lovely memories, but at the time it was anything but. Full of anxiety, full of stress, how are we gonna get through this? I think the PPP loan is the same way. We have positive thoughts now, looking back at it, but at the time, I literally would call Paul and Rick, because we were friends, even outside the bank, and apologize for what I was about to say to them. But I was looking out for my family, looking out for our businesses, and almost felt on those phone calls, am I risking our friendship over the stress that this is causing? But they kept saying kind of what you told them, trust me, we got your back, just trust me. And by the 3rd or 4th time, I started to really trust that, okay, they wouldn't just say this because there's been a long relationship there. But one thing that was the most stressful was I felt we were having to choose between the PPP loan for our business and what was best for our employees, because they were doing better on unemployment. And once we got the loan, we had that window that we had to be back open, and just like restaurants and just like Brian and Drew, we couldn't open. We were a dental office. And so the PPP loan did give us the comfort that we had this sum of cash that we'd have to not just negotiate in our interest, but to negotiate with our employees in their interest, knowing that we are gonna have to bring them back to work, and there's gonna be a lot of costs to the safety measures and everything. Maybe we're not gonna be able to see, but 25% of the patients we saw before said the long-term effects of that. Like I said, we had 4 kids, and we're home trying to educate them, and at the same time, trying to get on the phone with South Carolina Department of Unemployment, people about the loans. And if it happens again, one thing I'd like to see the state, the federal, everyone do is extend their hours, because when our kids are awake, we're teaching them. We're trying to help our employees, and once they go to bed, that's when we have time to do other things. But if all the lines are just normal business hours, if the post office is normal business hours, all these government agencies are trying to handle all this in the same amount of time. Their computers are crashing, we can't get on the websites, you can't handle that. So if you spread it out over a longer time, I think it would help a lot of us. And my biggest concern in the future, and it's not just a